So I actually have given a version of this before with young nonprofit professionals and inclusion in arts. We felt it was really important for people to see how the nonprofit world and the entertainment world and artists and whatnot could work together. We gave this talk at Anthem, so this will not be as boisterous as that version. But to me, one of the most important things that nonprofits and artists need to remember when marketing themselves is to understand what your mission is and what your voice is. A lot of people, as artists, they were like, well, what if I'm in a few different genres? If you're a visual artist, what if you have a few different mediums? And really, to me, I think it's important to still be authentic to yourself. Like if you do a few different mediums, then that's fine. Then go ahead and market yourself for being able to do both. And with nonprofits, your mission statement, although some people feel that's something that's really set in stone, that's something that I think can actually grow and build with the nonprofit. For instance, inclusion in arts, and that's a nonprofit that we want to make sure that galleries and showcases and whatnot include all walks of life. It could be age, gender identification, race, and all of that. So I feel that with the mission statement, it actually really focuses on visual arts, but we see that it's important to include other forms. So at times, sometimes your mission statement may need to evolve, and that's okay. That's something that as a board you would all talk about, but to market it, understand that your audience will adapt with you. You know, like it's not like someone's gonna say, oh, they changed from their mission statement, like they lose their integrity. I think if you stick true to what it is that you wanna stick with, those people will come along with you. And I also think it's important to, when marketing yourself, to understand how to use that mission statement with your community. I went to a conference out in Indianapolis not too long ago, and one of the biggest takeaways that I took from it was just because the table is colorful doesn't mean that it's working. So you have to remember, just because you think, oh, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, we should have a person of color on our board, we should have someone from corporate on a nonprofit board, that doesn't really mean it's working. Because you want to make sure that you gain something from it, but that also that community that you're trying to bring in would gain something from it. So like inclusion in art, if they're wanting to change a mission statement to include performing arts, are we actually even giving anything back to that community instead of just trying to be as inclusive as possible? Because it can actually be detrimental to be that inclusive in a way, because it almost makes you more prejudiced, because you're just saying, oh, we just need like someone from the Latino community now. Like, no, that's not it, because we don't know if we're really serving them. So really get to know who your audience is and what communities you can benefit from and will benefit from you. But yeah, I just want to kind of hear from you guys too, because something I'm really passionate about is storytelling for other organizations and communities I'm part of, instead of really like talking about myself. I want to give voices to those who don't feel like they can speak up or don't know how to speak up. So if you guys have any instances of times where you didn't know exactly how to market something, or other communities you may be able to reach out to, like we can do kind of like a discussion or a dialogue instead of just me talking. So does anyone? Yeah.
Since you mentioned mission statements here, my day job is designing websites, and I've worked with a lot of nonprofits doing their websites as well. And the typical mission statement that comes across my desk that I wind up having to copy edit is usually filled with jargon and corporate speak. And my advice to the clients is usually trim it down and don't write too much about it, because nobody's going to read it. So
right.
Doing this, you should be doing it for yourselves, because I guarantee you no one who comes to this website is actually going to click on mission statement and read it. So any thoughts about that?
I actually think the mission statement is actually very important. It should be very short, and succinct. I mean, max like 3 sentences long, you know, but there are several times where if I'm researching a nonprofit, I actually look to see what their mission statement is. Okay. And then I see if they stick to those values or not. Because you wouldn't want to go somewhere where they don't have one, because then you don't really know what direction they're going in. So I would recommend like really tailoring it. And I say that it can grow, but don't change it like every year, you know, but just see like if the organization is 10 years old, do you have to evolve the mission statement? Like Norman Music Festival, we had one for the first, I think like 8 or 9 years, and then year 10 we ended up changing it. You know, and so just kind of like, just like with bylaws and whatnot with any board, you kind of have to look at it and make sure you're still sticking with it. Because some people on your board are there because of the mission statement. You know, like they're there because they are passionate about what they're doing. Confidence Con is a women empowerment conference here in Oklahoma City. And I love how truly their core mission is to empower women and like female identifying people to be able to speak up and to be empowered enough to do whatever it is that they want to do. If we strayed from that, I don't know if I'd be on it anymore. So that's why I actually do think it's very important to stick with a mission statement, even if it's like truncated or whatever. So yeah. Any questions? Any experiences? Yes.
I guess I haven't worked with a lot of nonprofits, but I would probably think that what if you're a nonprofit that has been dependent on donations and maybe some grants, and all of a sudden, a big portion of that money is gone this year. Mm-hmm. So if you're in that boat and you're that nonprofit, you got a bazillion things running through your head. What would be the best course of action now that you're dealing with less?
So that like kind of triggers like my event planning side. So then another takeaway from this would be to think about events and fundraisers that would make sense with your nonprofit and your mission, right? And to maybe partner up with other nonprofits who have similar missions. Some that are off the top of my head, like it would make sense if Curbside Chronicle, Homeless Alliance, and City Care all work together. If one of them was in needs of funds, then you can like go to the other nonprofits that have similar missions, instead of saying like, oh, here's some local Oklahoma vegetarian co-ops, but like they need funding, so they go to like the Pork Council. Like that doesn't make sense, you know? So stick to what your values are and what would make sense for you to build these partnerships. Because then with these events, they would be fundraisers to help raise money for you. Consider maybe like a membership thing and figure out like what memberships can we offer these people? Is it free admission to certain events? Or is it a free ticket to like a big event at the end of the year? And if you do the membership, make sure your members feel appreciated and loved. Young nonprofits, we try really hard to make events that would cost a new member or someone who isn't a member, but with the members that we have, like we have a Plaza networking crawl tonight, so we're gonna buy everyone's pizza. That's a member, you know. And then we have events like membership celebration where they get free tickets and free drink tickets and all this other stuff. So there are ways to come up with fundraisers that would align with your mission so that people learn who you are, what you guys do, and to teach them that you are a resource in that field of nonprofit. Yes?
I have a great illustration of what you just said. Speaking of Curbside Chronicles, so I sit on a board for, it's called Race Dance. It's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Local professional hip hop and contemporary dance company.
Yeah, I know he.
Don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's one of my favorite people. So a couple of years ago for their summer show, I don't know if you had a chance to attend, they actually partnered with Curbside Chronicle exactly to do what you just said, create exposure for one another. Mm-hmm. And they actually had a couple of folks that were selling Curbside Chronicle, so their employees, so to speak, present. And Race Dance actually choreographed a dance to illustrate some of the challenges of being homeless and things like that. It was really, really moving and touching. So yeah. It was really neat, and they actually did a Facebook Live of that particular number, that dance, and got a lot of shares and things around it. So
yeah.
That was a really cool illustration of that.
And I think it's so important to be able to not use your community, but find a way to foster a larger community by working together. I know with Norman Music Festival, like there's a Norman Film Festival that has been wanting to start up and that's been getting bigger and bigger. So they came to us to, in a way, be like an incubator. So if your nonprofit is in the position where you can offer something like that, we even offered grants for a couple years where Wiggle Out Loud had come to us because we had been around for a few more years to help them apply for a grant so that they could actually get some funding. That is probably like a super special case, but you'll be amazed at what grants are actually available. I remember there was one year I wanted to go to a social media conference where my board wasn't able to pay for it, and then I later found out that there is an organization that you can apply for administrative grants that help out with that. Kirkpatrick Foundation is a great one where they actually have some money set aside specifically for infrastructure grants, which I was like amazed at because I'd never even heard of that before. So that's something you can use to your advantage. And really reach out and just kind of ask people, like, what are good fundraising methods? Like, who does your grant writing? Is it someone who's ever done grant writing? Is it someone who is actually like an accredited fundraising professional? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, you can become like an AFP, yeah. And that person may be able to help you so much. There's like a great organization and chapter of AFP National here in Oklahoma City. So yeah, just kind of like put some feelers out, talk to some friends, because you'll be amazed at how big your community can be by asking like the simplest questions. So, any other questions?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of the fundraising part of that. So, a common struggle that I see with nonprofits that I've worked with is not so much the fundraising itself, but like really falling into using like they have people that show up to the events. They're always the same people. They have the same corporate partners, and that's really great because they're getting a lot of money from that. But they want new people. They want to reach new audiences. They want to reach out to new corporate partners. But that can be hard to do if maybe like people are less familiar. And so, you know, obviously that's when like brand storytelling and the mission statement and things like that, you know, need to be utilized. But in like your experience, how have you seen like kind of pushing someone brand new like through the buying cycle of becoming unfamiliar to being a donor?
So that can be tough too, because like with Norman Music Festival, like we can't, it's not that we can't, but like we're so loyal to Fowler, we could like never have another card dealership, you know? So I think at that point it's kind of, you can see different levels that they can come in, because I know like if there's no like competitive clause or whatever, right? Or like your mindset where you're like, I don't want to have these people competing. Banks like require their staff to have so many community service hours. So another thing is if you need volunteers, try and get a bank as your sponsor. And if you get several, then you can see like, do they have to be the only one? Some of them may say like, no, we're mid first, we have to be your only sponsor. So you can't ask like bank first or whatever. But you can see if they can do different tiers or sponsor different things. And then if they're part of your event and they learn to love it, they may like up their donation so that they can bump out someone else. And really, even if they don't become like a big corporate sponsor, you may be able to at least get smaller donations. We joke that Norman is run by like a millipede, where it's like thousands of tiny little legs, and then one like super buff one, which is Fowler. But I think it's better to be run by smaller ones, because then you don't have to like freak out if you lose out on a grant. You know, like a big major grant that may be paid for like 25% of your stuff and it's suddenly gone. So I think if you work with the smaller organizations, individuals who will feel really benefited from it, I think that you'll see the numbers grow. So it's like 100 people donating 100 instead of whatever. Yeah. Did that kind of answer your question?
No, it did.
Okay.
I guess the only other piece would be like if we're talking, so then moving away from corporate partnerships to just individuals, like how do you like move on the nonprofit side an individual through that cycle?
And I think, again, that's like with the kind of member benefit or the buy-in that they get. You know, like what would they get if they were just a member at 25 versus donating 1,000 or something? And that's really tough too, because that may have to come from like the alumni mentality. You know, like you know, you're in Loyal, so they ask Loyal classes to donate to like an alumni pool to continue the program and whatnot. So it's kind of like, what is the benefit that I get now, and what would be the benefit that I get in the future for being part of something like that you can continue to build that up. Yeah.
Just one idea on that. Let me see if I can articulate this. One thing you could do is use the scarcity mentality, which is offer them something that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else unless they were a member. And as an example, let's say that you're promoting musical artists. You could get some of those artists to contribute to a limited edition CD that would only be available to supporting members. You know, it would never be published again anywhere outside of that. So anything along those lines to where you're giving them
that exclusiveness
something that they can't get anywhere else, you know, and fear of missing out will play into getting them to sign up on something like that.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Any questions? What's up?
You can remember back to when you were just getting started as a marketer, supporter of nonprofits and artists. Way back when, is there something that you wish you would have known then that you know now? Maybe some advice for people in the room who are fledgling marketers for nonprofits and artists who could benefit from that?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys are actually like straight up in a nonprofit right now, but like in nonprofits, on the board, whatever, you wear like 1,000 hats, right? Like no one is just one role in any nonprofit. So my biggest piece of advice would be to learn as much as possible. Go to like workshops to learn about fundraising, about database, about budgeting, which is odd because it's like, I would say, oh yeah, learn as much about marketing as you can. But like if that's your passion, you're kind of always gonna be drawn to it. I would never even think to go to like a budgeting workshop. That like makes my skin crawl. But like it would be so important to know, because then you would understand, oh, well, if this is how this is going, then like I have X amount of dollars for myself for marketing. Or if we need more money, then I understand that I need to help promote this fundraising event so that we have more money for marketing or whatever. So weirdly enough, it would be like attain as many other skills as possible. I like hyper-tailored my experience in nonprofits, in arts and entertainment, because that's where I was really passionate from the beginning. I used to be in performing arts, and my first internship was actually with the Festival of the Arts. So I learned a lot right out the bat about contracts, about like stage planning, about stage management and everything. But I wish I had gotten to see another side of it while I was there. I never really got to meet our financial person. I never really understood how the grant process works. So that's something I wish I knew more about so that I could understand the importance of what my marketing timeline would be versus the deadlines that they have to have in order to get the right amount of money in. Another thing I didn't realize was how meticulous your own database has to be when it comes to impressions, to all the like media hits you may have gotten, because a lot of that can really weigh into your grants. And I just had no idea. So that's why I think it's really, really important to like branch out from the marketing area and think, what is it that also affects what my marketing should be? So yeah, just learn as much as you can. Yeah. And I'm amazed at how many free workshops there are. Like Center for Nonprofit does a lot, where they have discounts if you're a member, or if you're in YNPN, you get discounts to the center, which is cool. But a lot of them, they teach you so many skills on like how to be on a board, how to run a board, how to do finances, all of it. So yeah, just kind of look around and see what workshops there are so that you can add to your skill set. Yeah.
So I don't think of nonprofits as neutral. I think they have a stance, a mission, a purpose. And I think more and more we see them attach themselves to political movements, or they take stances on those things. But I think the big worry with that is losing supporters and donors. So as like a local nonprofit, how would you begin to sort of take sides on some current events or political stances, but sort of begin those conversations? And do you think that that's sort of like financial or brand suicide? Because it does seem kind of dangerous.
So I have been very lucky that a lot of the ones I'm involved in, we all think very similarly. Perfect example with, and it shouldn't have been a partisan issue, like we all understand this, but like the teacher strike, Elemental, we decided to, if you were a teacher, you got like half off, like your drinks and stuff. And we made them like goodie bags and whatnot. And I told them, I was like, I will pay the difference if I have to, like I personally. And so we did that for a little bit, and it was a risk, and it's a risk that while working there, people know that I'm on the board for the ACLU, so it's interesting because some people may be very put off by that, but as an individual, I would say, like say it if you want to, because now more than ever, I feel we are very polarized, but people want to see an authentic voice behind it at the same time. If you're not okay with something that's happening, I think you should be able to say it. If you lose donors, you don't know that other donors may come in because they're so proud of you for having said something. So it is a big risk. I don't see it as like a suicide, because maybe this is like the naive part of me saying it, but I would believe that someone would come in and step in and say, hey man, I'm really proud that you did that. And like I said, maybe it'll be a small amount of donors. And the ACLU, they call it like the Trump dump, where like all these donors and all these people came in donating money to the ACLU, where they have this like huge influx, where they're like, we've never had this much funding before, so what are we supposed to do with it? And that's an extreme case because they're a political thing, but you never know if that's gonna happen. So I think it also depends, are you gonna be making a political statement just because you want to, or is it because it's something that goes against or with your mission statement? Like it wouldn't make sense if, I can't think of one that wouldn't have to do with everything, but anyway, I think as long as it's not super polarizing and just totally left field, I think it should be something that you can talk about and something you can comment on. Yeah, it's not like endorsing a certain candidate, because that wouldn't really make sense for most nonprofits, but yeah. I think an organization should be allowed to like have a voice if they want to. Yeah.
I'm with the Dean McGee Eye Institute, so I think it's state question 793 maybe. We have made the stance of not to have a voice in that because we feel it really doesn't affect us. But I was concerned from the marketing standpoint. I was thinking we're going to get people asking on Facebook, hey, what does Dean McGee think of this? Surprisingly, we haven't. But if I was the decision maker, I would have put something out on Facebook.
Yeah. And even if you say, like, hey, just so you know, like, we don't want to say anything about this, I mean, people would understand, Norman Music Festival was sued a few years ago by the Second Amendment Association because we said no firearms on the festival grounds, which I guess impeded their rights. And so we were kind of like, do we say anything until the lawsuit's over? Like, what do we do? Because it was really awkward, like we didn't want to really make a stance. We saw it as it's a safety thing before a rights thing. But we did end up saying something because we were like, you know what, screw it. Like, this is our festival. we're an independent free festival in Norman. So yeah, I think our genius lawyer said no Guns N' Roses allowed in Norman Music Festival or something. It's definitely our most shared, most popular post we've ever made. But we had to say something, you know? So I think it depends on like if there's just this influx of people asking where your stance is. And then if you're comfortable saying, we're not gonna say anything, versus, you know what, screw it, we are gonna say something. Because we had to say something. Yeah, that year was awesome. Just saying. Okay, anything else? Questions, concerns about marketing, about me? Cool.
Okay.
I guess we're good. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for coming out and seeing Michelle Bowie today here at our lift session. I want one solid round of applause for her since the last one was a little awkward. There you go.
I live for that.
What if people have follow-up questions, reach you on Twitter? Is that cool?
Yeah, so I am the Michelle Bowie because Michelle Bowie's taken. If anyone knows her, I would really like all of her accounts because she doesn't use them. So yeah, and then yeah, the Michelle Bowie on I think literally everything. So yeah.
Follow Michelle, tweet at her, ask her questions. I want to thank our sponsor today is Cafe 7. Thank you for the breakfast. We have another lift session coming up next month. It'll be the third Thursday of November. It's November 15th. Right here, 9 a.m., we're going to be listening to Chloe Cumby, and she is employed at Candor PR. She's going to be talking about focus groups, what our audiences are saying about us. So I hope to see you this time next month right here. Thank you, guys.